All right, so I'm going to be talking about Alzheimer's and dementia. So, Alzheimer's disease, as we all know, is a very sad and deadly disease that many have suffered or currently are suffering. It's an ongoing battle between the mind and yourself. Alzheimer's is a progressive and not neurodegenerative disorder that can cause disorientation and behavioral changes and obstructs memory, thinking, and judgment. I had a friend of mine whose grandmother who had Alzheimer's. I was really good friends with her for a very long time, and I knew her grandma before she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It was pretty difficult to see my friend's family trying to understand the whole disease and all. Um, it was really hard for her to like remember my name, my friend's name, her grandchildren's names, her kids' names. It was just hard all around in general, and it was really difficult to see her like that. Dementia disease. Dementia is also a hard and sad thing. It has the same symptoms but more milder, but is not a specific disease, but general term of the granular and progressive and and mental and physical functions. It affects memory, language, problem solving, and attention. My great grandmother had dementia. Most of all these things she had, especially the mental and physical functions. Um, Language wasn't hard for her at all. She would just speak her mind about everything, but most of the things she had was in these. Alzheimer's and dementia disease. For Alzheimer's, it affects the brain cells connections, and the cells themselves disintegrate and die, eventually destroying memory and other important mental functions. For dementia, it is a group of conditions characterized by impairment of at least two brain functions, such as memory loss and judgment. These are the strategics, as you see right here. For Alzheimer's and dementia, the least ages to have Alzheimer's is between 65 and 70. It's between 65 and 74. But the majority that are diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia is either between 85 plus years and 75 to 84 years old. For me, I wish there was a cure for these terrible diseases. It's hard to for people to understand that these diseases kill you. They can kill you mentally, and it's a really hard thing to talk about for people to understand. This picture right here is my lovely grandmother. Last year, not this year. Last year she did pass away. Um, Whenever I was told that she was diagnosed with dementia, I was around 8, 9, or 10 years old. As a child, you can't really grasp an illness like that. For me, I didn't understand what dementia was. I just didn't understand what it does to somebody. But at the time, she was just still herself. She was always an independent woman. She always did everything around the house. She always cleaned, cooked, everything. I mean, everything. She took care of everybody, no matter who it was. And she always went to church. And there was times where it was hard for her to remember things, but it was just it was easier for her whenever she was around 70, 70ish. Yeah, she it was easier for her, but she was diagnosed when she was 70 something years old. Right here is the story where I talk about where where I lived when I lived with her. Um, I was living in Dallas at the time, and my grandma was getting much worse. She was 95. Well, when we came back, she was 93. My nana gave us a call and told us that we needed to come back so we can take care of her. None of my family members had time or patience to take care of my grandma, but we were the only ones, and we stepped up. While taking care of her, it was trivial. It was hard, and the hardest thing of seeing my grandma was when she would talk to the walls or talk to the TV, talk about her past, brothers and sisters, her mom and dad. Um, She would always talk about my grandpa. He passed away before I was even born, 2 years before I was even born. Um, the hardest one was when she would talk about her sister-in-law. Her sister-in-law and my grandma, my they never got along. They never got along, and she did pass away like years ago. And my grandma would think that she's in the TV mocking her, calling her ugly, saying these horrible things to her, and she would just go off on the TV, either turn it off or turn it back on. Um, it was hard because of COVID as well. We couldn't really do anything. We couldn't really take her to doctor's appointments. Um, it was just hard for her to understand what was going on with her. I remember one night, I was going to sleep. It was around 2, 3 in the morning, and my grandma sleeps with her TV on at like 100 because she cannot hear. And I heard someone scream my name, and I thought it was the TV, so I go back to sleep, and I hear it getting louder and louder. So I run to my grandma's room, and I see her on the floor, and she's just screaming and like flailing her body. And I had to grab her, and I said, "Grandma, Grandma, it's me." And she asked me, "Who am I?" And that's when I knew she was in the deep end. That she was slowly forgetting people's names. I had to call my mom and my dad to come and help her up back into the bed, and I stayed in the room with her for the majority of the night, even though I had school the next day. It was just hard to see her like that. But unfortunately, she did pass away last year, so she doesn't have to suffer like this anymore. In conclusion, it was the hardest thing that I had to face. Trying to understand what it's like for somebody, especially my grandma, to have all these things, and also my friend's grandma who had Alzheimer's. It was just hard to see that for them, even though I knew in the past that they were very free, independent women who did everything they could for their family. But as time moves on, time goes forward, it does get harder and harder. I want people to understand that these two illnesses do affect everybody, not just you, but your family, the person who is suffering it. It does affect your mental issues and your emotional issues and memory loss. And so you you imagine yourself just forgetting everybody around you. You imagine yourself forgetting who you are and where you're at, and reverting back to when you were a child or a young teenager. It was just hard all around, and I can't imagine what it was like to be inside their mind, to think what's going on, like what is happening in their mind, what they're thinking all the time. I just want people to acknowledge that these things are real. um, and also, if you give an elderly person a hard time, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know if they have an illness that's slowly killing them. You can't give somebody in your family who's your grandma, your grandpa, someone outside of your life in public, that they're giving you a hard time, that you need to realize that these people don't have that much time on earth, and you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what's happening to them. I want people to understand that this is a real thing, and it's nothing funny about it. And these are all my sites. Thank you.